Welcome back. In the previous video, or in part one, we've set up our animation workspace, and we've got the sky animating on a loop like that. We animated the position property using two keyframes. Let's delve deeper into using keyframes and animate the other three assets that we have in this composition for our animated Instagram post. So we can twirl up our transform properties for the sky. We're finished with the sky, and we'll turn the planet on. And the planet, I also want to be moving across the picture plane, so I'm going to twirl down and access my transform properties and the position again. I'm going to stop playing by pressing the space bar. Let me toggle the play, the space, the animation on and off with using the spacebar. And again, we're going to animate the position property here, adding keyframes to the position property. Adding a keyframe, we start that process by clicking on the stopwatch next to the property name there, and it creates that keyframe. I'm going to move the planet off the stage there, and I'm going to add another keyframe at the end of the timeline. And I can actually add a keyframe by clicking on this little icon here, which is to the left of the stopwatch. Okay, so I've got the two keyframes, but nothing's happening because there's no actual change in those coordinates. So make sure that you are over the keyframe there, and I'll move that over to the other side there. So now it moves, and it's moving at a slightly different pace to the background so that it gives us that kind of sense of three-dimensionality. I'm going to stop right there in the middle. And I think that my planet is actually a little bit too large for this composition. So I'm going to go to the scale property there, and I'm going to bring the scale percentage down a little bit, maybe to something like that. Now I just clicked and dragged on those increments there. I can actually type in a number if I want to by selecting the little field there. Okay, so I think that size is a little bit better. Looking good. So we can twirl up the properties for the planet, and let's have a look at the fish. I reckon they look good. Maybe we could start by just changing their scale a little bit. So we can, I've got both of them selected in the layer stack there, and if I twirl that down, both of their transform options will open, and we can adjust their scale there. Because I've got both of them selected, it's adjusting both of their scale at the same time. I'm going to deselect one and go to the fish number 2, make him just a little bit bigger, smaller. Alright, now we're going to animate their position property again. Something that I'd like to point out is the shortcut for twirling down transform properties. So I'll just twirl that up. If I want to access just the position property of a layer, I can hit P on the keyboard, and that will open up just the position property. P to close it again, P to open it. So I have shortcuts like that for all of the transform properties. So if I select fish number 2 and hit P, I can open up the position property, S for scale, R for rotation, and T for opacity or transparency. So P, S, R, and T. And I can hit T again to close or twirl them up. So I might kind of start using those shortcuts from now on. And I'm going to select both of the fish, twirl down their position properties. And I find it's just nicer to have just the focus property that I'm working on open at the time. Keeps the kind of workspace a bit cleaner. Okay, so adding a position property, I'm going to get these guys off the canvas and maybe position them a little bit differently. They're going to be moving from the right across to the left. So selecting both of them, I can move them holding shift. You can see my animation on the canvas there. And now if I hit play, I can see our fishies moving across the canvas. Now I think I'd like our fish front to be moving a little bit faster, and that is going to require me to select the right fish to start with, but just to make a little bit more space between the first keyframe and the last keyframe. Just holding shift down to make sure that it's all constrained to that horizontal coordinate. And now when I play that, it should be moving just a bit faster. Kind of adds to the three-dimensionality of it a little bit. Alright, now I'm going to add a little bit of variation to the movement of the fish. I want them to kind of bob up and down just a little bit. So I'm going to twirl down the rotation properties of the fishies. And right at, well, we might go out to 3 on the timeline, and I can tell that I'm exactly at 3 seconds there. And should be 3. I might go to 2 actually, sorry about that. To 2. And I can actually, if I want to go somewhere specific on the timeline, I can actually type into this go to time window or field, whatever it is, and it will perfectly position me at that 2-second mark along the timeline. I'm going to set a rotation keyframe for, actually I might go to 4 so I can see both of them. So this next bit is going to be a little bit fiddly. I'm going to set a keyframe for both of them for rotation. You can see the keyframe there on our animation path. And if I select our other fish, I can see our keyframe there. So the animation path kind of gives us a visual indication of the keyframes and what's going on in the timeline. You can see I've got a keyframe here, and then a keyframe at this current point. So rotation keyframes though, which are slightly different. I'm going to move forward to Actually, I might rotate them a little bit at this point so that they're kind of looking down. Alright, so I've got both of them selected, and I'm going to just drag that to about, I don't know, minus 5. Like so. You can see they've kind of tilted down a little bit. Then I move forward to 5 seconds on the timeline, and they've moved across a little bit, and then I'm going to change this to 5, and now I've got 2 keyframes. So between here and here you can see that they're kind of starting to look from down to up. Alright, so at this point here, this coordinate is in effect, and then at that point they change their rotation, and then this coordinate is in effect. So what I want to do now is copy and paste these keyframes all the way along the timeline so that I can have my fish kind of bobbing up and down. So I'm going to go to 6. Well, first of all, I'm going to click and drag so that those keyframes are selected. I'm going to go to 6. I'm going to copy, Command C on the keyboard, and then Command V for paste. So now I've got a duplicate of those keyframes. I'll move along to 8. Do that again. And then I'm going to go back in time to 2. Paste those keyframes there. Paste those keyframes there. And I'm going to need one right at the end as well. So right to the end of the timeline and Command V again. So now when I scrub through, I can see that my fish 1 is actually bobbing up and down. I've got to repeat that process for my fish 2 that's in the background there a little bit. So what we do is we go to the layer where we want to copy the keyframes. I'm going to select those keyframes, and I can edit, copy, and then go to the point in the timeline where I want to paste those keyframes. I'll paste them. Along to 2. Paste those keyframes. Paste them at 6, and then at 8, and then finally one right at the end. Excellent. And so that's our animation completed. I suppose we could animate more, but I think this is definitely a good start. Let's twirl up our rotation keyframes there to get everything nice and neat, and play through what we've created. You can see our little fishies swimming through that galaxy, moving past our planet in the background there. Excellent. I think that's a really good start. And I might just pause here, and in the next part of this series, we'll look at how we can export this animation to a video file so we can then upload it to our Instagram account.